Could I tell you a little bit about Satan? That in the court of heaven, Satan is the district attorney. He is not, as Christians imagine, the enemy of heaven and the enemy of mankind. He's merely the person who sees the bad side of things and carries out the dirty work.
Something that I find repulsive about especially monotheistic messianic religion. With a large part of itself, it quite clearly wants us all to die.
A new consciousness is developing which sees the Earth as a single organism and recognizes that an organism at war with itself is doomed.
Welcome to Deferred Gnosis. We live in a world of gnosis deferred.
In this show, we will grasp those fleeting eternal truths that can only come through a dialogue of contrasting perspectives.
One of which is my own, Shea Bilé. I've been a practicing Satanist for most of my life.
And myself, Matthew Johnson, the secular atheist.
So we're going to talk about that dirty S word, spiritual.
Spiritual experience.
And what it means to me, what it means to Matthew here.
Yes.
I am of a spiritual bent, I suppose. I've evolved to kind of have that attribute about myself.
A spiritual tinge, if you will.
Spiritual, yes, a flavoring. So I guess we would go to kind of talk about what it means to us, right? What is a transcendent experience? What is a spiritual experience? What does it mean for an atheist?
Well, from a secular atheistic perspective, it's actually quite simple. So,
and this is a relatively new idea, though, for atheists, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you know, actually, there's a lot of, I would say the majority of the atheist camp currently, these days, contemporarily, is comprised of individuals who are not comfortable with the idea of a quote-unquote spiritual experience.
It's the trappings of those religious types.
Yes, yes.
Those
the yesteryears, the medieval, the Christian, the Catholic, the spiritual, the mystics, the rain dancers.
Sure. Rain dancing and all that sounds fun, by the way.
It does sound like a lot of fun. You just can't take it too seriously. The issue is when we rain dance, we don't expect.
Wait a sec.
Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Grabbing guns already, right through the
coming
gate.
Out swinging. Sorry about that, Shea. Go ahead.
All right.
Let's ease into this.
Yeah. Let's. like any good intimate experience, we should come into this slowly but surely. So, this, like I said, this is a recent thing. What I feel like. In the I don't want to say diatribe.
Sure.
I don't want to say diatribe. I was about to.
Okay.
In the dialogue.
Yes.
Of the brights of the atheists. You don't want me saying that. You don't want me saying brights.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
There has been the meditation and yoga and even like a little foreplay with Buddhism.
Sure. I would not so much atheists in particular, but these things are certainly making their way into the Western world.
No, they've been in the Western world for a while.
Okay. Yeah.
Come on. But for atheists, it seemed like atheists were naysayers for a long time with any trappings that had anything to do with spirituality.
I definitely think it makes them a little nervous. It puts them on the defensive, of wanting to neglect and deny any sort of, I hate to say it, but the atheists will tend to focus on the mundane and focus on what's directly in front of their nose and tend to reject anything that smells kind of
factual,
spiritual. You know?
Prudes. Evidentiary.
Prudes, yeah. Factual prudes. That's exactly it, yeah. So, but, you know, the subjective human experience is so much broader than that.
So you think so?
I believe so.
I feel like you're defecting a little bit.
And that could be that could well be the case, and I'm comfortable with that. Again, as a staunch secular atheist,
very staunch,
quite staunch. But I think we need to make room for these honest. I stress the word honest, profound experiences that seem to go beyond. And that's where
undeniable.
the word undeniable, honest, undeniable, transcendent experiences. And
what do you
transcendent. And we'll use the word transcendent to mean beyond the day-to-day mundane, beyond the normal. We're not talking about picking the kids up from school or you know, carrying out tasks at work. We're talking about these profound emotional experiences that go beyond these mundane. That's how I would define transcendent.
Where do you think they come from? And what is it? What is it for you though, as a secularist? What is a would you even call it a spiritual experience? You probably eschew that term.
Yeah, and actually, I would tend to kind of move away from the word spiritual, just only for the sake of its connotation, only for the potential to be misunderstood by people who might be listening to me. I would avoid spiritual. I would try to replace it with transcendent, because I feel like that's a little bit more secular friendly. But what does it mean to me? It means, there's a lot of ways to get there. I tend to be powerfully emotional sometimes. And so if I listen to a great piece of music that really puts me in a place, that's one way to have one of these transcendent experiences. I hate to say it, psychedelics and things like this can really put you...
You don't hate to say that.
Can put you in a place, perhaps I don't hate so much to say it, hate's a strong word, can put you in a place and give you an experience that is definitely not the humdrum norm. And I would definitely call some of the insights and some of the emotive forces involved transcendent.
Absolutely.
Broadening your normal experience, broadening your perspective. You come away from a transcendent experience with a wider horizon, with a greater capacity for emotional experience, for understanding others, for connecting.
How about outside of triggers like psychedelics?
Yeah, well, again,
Like you mentioned music. Right?
Yeah, music is a great way to get there. I myself am not a big. I haven't done a lot of meditation myself, but I have done a lot of reflecting, and that may be synonymous with some sort of meditation, where you sit and you think back, and just this reflective experience, and trying to figure out where you fit in the world, and the universe, and the planet. When you really put things into perspective, when you consider things on their actual scale of what you are and where you are, an animal, a mammal on the planet, existing with other mammals and plants and animals, and in this solar system, in this galaxy, in this universe.
Sure.
If you think long and honestly enough about it, I think that can become a transcendent experience in and of itself.
Sure. I believe that does exist. I mean, from my perspective, I practice magic, the occult. I have had I've had spiritual experiences of different sorts. I have you could even say that I'm comfortable with calling it mystical.
Okay. Now, what do you mean exactly by... let's just go ahead and...
Sure.
What do you mean exactly by mystical? If you were to define the term in your mind, from your experiences, what does it mean, mystical?
Well, I freely embrace a lot of things that, for the longest time, are called supernatural. I'm not going to lie about that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm not going to lie about that
okay.
here. And I'm not afraid of labels. Being a Satanist... there's a bit of fearlessness that comes to play with that.
Okay.
So, and I've also practiced the occult. I do believe in forces outside of science.
You're kind of dancing a fire line, though, wouldn't you say? Because just as well.
Fireline. Nice choice of words there.
Yeah, just as well as I might alienate myself from a lot of secular atheists.
Sure.
By admitting some semblance of transcendent experience, you may be doing the same with a lot of Satanists with regard to making room for a mysticism.
That may be true. Now, let me kind of explain where that sort of comes from. If you talk about strict LaVeyan Satanism...
Sure.
It has secular underpinnings, but... There's room for... they practice magic.
There's a lot of rituals in that.
Yeah, there's ritualism and ceremonial what have you.
Yes.
There is a kind of... It's a psychodrama. There is that idea that there's psychological benefit from magic.
Right.
But there are those... if you're going by LaVeyan philosophy, there is room for...
A literal...
Almost pantheistic... kind of room for...
A literal invocation of spirits, would you say? Or
now we're getting into, literal.
Right.
You're saying, like...
I mean,
anthropomorphic
yeah,
kind of deity.
yes, yeah, right. I mean, is that where it goes? I mean, certainly LaVey wouldn't have taken it there.
He even talks about, I mean, he says in the Satanic Bible and elsewhere,
Sure.
he said, you are, as a Satanist, free to kind of, believe in a deity if you're mystically inclined. Because I realize that some people require that, he says. And whatever your understanding or connection to the spiritual, a literal entity, whether it's Satan or something else, it is an entity that is not concerned about the living things on this small ball of dirt in a sea of stars and galaxies. So he left room for that. He left room for interpretation of a force, of a construct. And I very much believe in that. I believe synchronicity. I believe in dreams come to life. I believe in things happening at the right time. I believe in a song coming on at the right time. Just too perfect. Almost like when reality becomes poetic.
So mysticism for you, if I could paraphrase, is there is some sort of supernatural fabric at work.
What's supernatural, though?
Well,
I think that's almost... I think to me it's super normal. I think spiritual experience is a part of human experience.
I would agree with that, actually.
I think these are things that are commonplace. I think they happen if you're open to it.
Right. I think where we differ a bit is just what we mean by spiritual experience. So, and supernatural. So,
Sure.
Supernatural being something like the suspension of natural laws or the suspension of physics as we know it, so that some miracle, quote unquote, can occur. Things at play in the universe that are well beyond human understanding. In fact...
But it's been happening for thousands of years. I mean, science is a great thing. It's a bedrock of a factual reality.
Right.
As we progress in science, I believe that factual reality becomes a bit ambiguous sometimes. At least there's limitations to our current understanding. However...
Certainly there are limitations to our current understanding.
I feel that there is phenomena that science hasn't caught up with yet.
Oh, and certainly... Well, that's... Yeah. Oh, yeah, certainly. There's no debate there. Lots of phenomenon occur that we don't have a good scientific explanation for. But I think as time goes on, that line of non-understanding will continue to recede. The human understanding and development of knowledge will continue to grow. And, in a way...
I think some of the things you consider fantastical
Sure.
are going to be proven at some point on a factual basis. I think science will come to prove some of the things which I find as personal truths, and that many find as personal truths.
So do you mean like something like, say, telepathy or telekinesis? I mean, assuming... I'm not saying
Of course.
I'm not saying that...
Moving things on the table. We're going to move it to that.
Well... But the fact of the matter is, some people really believe. There are geomancers out there. Some people really believe something.
Sure, absolutely.
And presuming, okay, so just for the sake of argument, I would say that presuming these things were real, science, given enough time, and the scientific method would eventually discover the mechanics of the phenomenon.
Sure. I believe, for me, and this is where this kind of becomes a difficult conversation to approach, because we're speaking things from... I believe that there is reality that is filtered through personal experience.
Certainly.
And I believe perception becomes reality. And I believe that... Is there situations where magic is real, where spirits manifest in whatever form or fashion? I just think that, the idea of the double slit paradox.
Sure. Quantum mechanics we're talking about.
Quantum mechanics. So the idea that observing it changes its form. Our mere perception, measuring it, changes the form in which reality resolves. I think that happens on a macrocosmic level. I think that our perception, if in the right state and the right conditions, can begin to make some of these things that are considered fantastical, in a sense, a reality, at least for that person. Whether you want to call it an imagination gone awry, whether
I'm
you want to
perfectly
call
happy with calling it imagination.
Oh, I know you are. I shouldn't even put it there.
Don't feed me this stuff. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy with saying something like, certainly the subjective experience was X, but actually the objective reality was Y. It was just Y perceived as X.
Well, let's cut to the chase, I suppose. I think spirituality has a benefit.
Sure.
I don't think that it has to be anchored to what we've been doing for the last 2,000 years.
Well,
You don't shit in a dirt hole or like in a pit. I mean, we can adapt to our current understanding, and I think spirituality has a place. I think there's benefit. Now, for you, in dialogue with you, I would say that there's a psychological benefit for sure, for like ritualizing, for ceremony, for beliefs.
Right.
I feel it even goes a little bit further.
Maybe I would call it something like ritual therapy, where the act of carrying out the ritual has some emotional value to the participants.
That alone vindicates it.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not out to say that all ritual acts are something we shouldn't do. In fact, I don't have any problem with ritualizing events or carrying out...
Would you ever do it?
Sure, of course I would.
In what fashion? I just kind of wonder.
You mean where are my boundaries in terms of what I would do ritualistically?
Yeah.
I don't think I have any boundaries. I mean, it's not something that I've had any experience with, really. But it's also not...
A lot of atheists would call that humdrum. I mean, if you were to do anything in that fashion, they would consider it humdrum. Now, I've known atheists who even engage in, say, occult, different occult forms.
I would be willing. I'd be willing to dabble in ritual as a mental and emotional exercise, and I'm not saying I would never get anything beneficial out of it. In fact, I'm wide open to the idea that, behaving in a certain way with some specific candles lit and saying some special words might, in fact, do something good for me. And I'm perfectly comfortable with that. Where I part company is in the underpinnings and the mechanics of what's actually happening. So, if you're invoking some particular spirit or deity or energy or force or what have you to achieve some goal, some people would believe in the literal invocation of that. And they think that something is entering into the natural world that was called upon by the acts of the ritual. I just don't believe that's what's going on. I think that, anything that arises in consciousness is merely a result of processes in the brain, and that if you get some emotional catharsis or some benefit,
is it
psychosomatic.
Is it possible that both are true? Is it possible that yes, it is just a psychological experiment?
Sure.
It is just acts in which symbolism carries meaning and creates an emotional response.
Yes.
And could it also be, there's a transference of energy of some sort. Mm-hmm. There are constructs that we bring to manifest through emotional heightened. I mean, but we're getting really deep into...
Is it possible? Well, I suppose,
I think reality can be both.
I mean, notice how careful I'm being here. I suppose it is possible, but it just seems really...
It's difficult to measure. I'll admit that.
It seems very unlikely, and I just would be wary about calling things facts and reality that we don't know for sure that's what's going on. Especially, some of these claims can get really out of hand. And we just need to have a dress code for the kinds of things that we allow ourselves to call facts and reality.
Okay.
The dress code is evidence. The dress code is measurability.
Yeah.
The dress code is fallibility. If an infallible claim is made, we have no way, by definition, to ascertain whether or not it's real. So... What is real?
I hate to ask that. I'm not going to ask that. I'm not going to ask that. There is something to say about personal experience.
It's all, yeah. Well, and that's
And-
what's so powerful about being human, is everything is personal experience. Everything is color.
Course,
Everything
of
is.
course.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to, cover something so obvious and plain, but everything is subjective. Everything is personal experiences. Everything is colored by our past, by our genetics, by our what have you.
I think
Brain chemistry.
if I may adopt a metaphor,
Sure.
I don't care how a soup is made. I don't care what comprises in it, so long as it doesn't make me sick. You're not putting whatever. You're not putting anthrax.
Bird
in my soup.
feces, yeah. Nobody wants
You're not
bird
leaving a
feces
used
in their tomato bisque.
Exactly. You're not leaving a used condom in my soup. All that aside,
I'm sure that's happened.
it. Not
If you've
to
ever
me.
been to Tijuana, I'm sure. Well, anyway.
Well, I'll get a lawsuit out of it. Not if I'm in Tijuana, but if I'm in the States, if I get a condom in my food, I would be able to seek out some type.
I've had a Band-Aid, and I don't go to that
Really?
ramen place anymore. I no
Wow.
longer. Yeah, I don't eat.
That's harsh.
I'm actually, it scarred me for ramen, and I'm just not interested in it. But
Well,
anyway. I
Anyway.
digress. You can understand.
sure. If I'm making a soup,
Yeah.
I kind of don't care so much about the ingredients.
Okay.
It's the taste of the soup in the end.
Sure.
So I feel that whatever gets me there. Now, so long as I see results from it,
Right.
So there is a bit of evidentiary necessity.
So it's a very pragmatic approach to magic.
to sure, or spiritual experience.
Right.
I feel that if it is just chemicals, wow, this is fucking great. If it is just chemicals, if it is just a myriad of natural processes that are taking place to change my fucking life forever,
Yeah.
because a series of events triggered at the right time, wow. I mean, I could just, if it's just that, it's amazing. But I think as humans, I think to live a poetic life, there's something that feels a connectivity to the rest of the world around you. Connectivity to something outside of casual human experience. And sometimes it is so tangible. It is so tangible. I feel like, yes, there has to be physiological changes happening to make this possible. And yes, it borders, or it is deep in the realm of what we would call spiritual and what we would call supernatural. But to me, it's not supernatural. To me, this was something that existed commonly. I don't think it's just humdrum. I think we can channel this innate need and this innate experience into something beneficial. And it doesn't have to have the fucking religious trappings that we've been burdened with for the last few thousand years. I don't think we need to hurt each other.
Right. Yeah. And again, I'm actually all in favor of channeling the personal psyche in powerful and meaningful and profound ways. And I'm all for experiencing profound and life-changing experiences. I think that these are healthy, and I would agree that they're natural.
Do you admit it? And I mean, I'm of the position that there's a danger of cynicism that runs in the atheist position.
Yeah, no, certainly.
The community.
Yeah,
There's
I
a
would
bit
certainly.
of there's a bit of like
A wall, a closed
Sure,
door, a
sure.
slamming shut of the gate.
does that endanger the possibility for those? Because it sounds like personally you're okay with someone identifying spiritually.
Yeah, well, certainly I am. Certainly I'm okay with that. With one significant caveat, which is, let's try to view these things in the scope that doesn't evoke the supernatural. And that's important to me because I think that once we open the gates to thinking in a way where we suddenly don't require evidence or facts to justify our thoughts, everything becomes murky. The water is mud. We can no longer see clearly.
Why do we have to put it under that mic? I mean, why? With a personal experience, how it's not a thing that is relative. It really is. Because how are you going to weigh out, even you, in saying that you've had transcendent experiences?
Oh, absolutely.
How
Absolutely.
are you? How
Very powerful.
How are you going to explain that to somebody else? How are you going to bring that to then be kind of scrubbed against?
Yeah.
This
Well, we have very
consider the factual.
We have very powerful tools. Neuroscience is growing in leaps and bounds to describe these esoteric processes that are right behind your eyes, right between your ears. We are learning more and more about the fundamentals that make us who we are.
I think there's...
And to me, that is the magic. That is the supernatural.
Absolutely. It's
the metaphorical
occultic.
Supernatural. Yeah.
It's the hidden.
I mean, people are working on things in neuroscience and in quantum mechanics that I mean, you may as well call it supernatural.
It's good stuff.
Except, I hate to be trite, but it harkens
There's things, just like there's things...
Reality is stranger than fiction,
Sure. There's things in quantum physics that are not exactly is and is not. And I'm not saying that to oversimplify, but there's simply a case where something...
It's probabilistic.
There's Schrodinger's cat...
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right.
Dead, alive, it's sometimes whatever. It's both until you observe it.
Right. Which is, I mean, keep in mind that's really just a thought experiment to describe the way that quantum mechanical experiments are carried out.
I just think there's a level of that in personal experience where there's something that, as being unresolved, it's very easy to kind of speak in a metaphorical way.
Yeah,
it's very easy to speek in a relativistic way.
As humans...
And as soon as you break it down, it's just not... It just doesn't translate well.
This metaphorical and poetic outlook has served extensively in our human history to help us make sense of the world around us in a very pragmatic and practical way. I mean, all we are mammals on the planet. We were here, we had to survive. We had to throw stones at fucking squirrels and shit. We had to chase animals with bow and arrows.
Yes.
We had to, so in other words, it is absolutely not intuitive to us to understand the world the way it actually is. That's not the point. That kind of like what you were saying. You don't care what's in the soup. You just care that the soup tastes good in the end. And that's exactly how evolution has programmed our brains. We aren't programmed to ascertain the actual real fundamental mechanics of the world around us. We are programmed to survive within it. That's what matters to us. But now that we've moved past hunter-gatherers, we had the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution. Mere survival is, for most of us, not the only thing that we're concerned about. We've moved on. And so we find ourselves in advanced mathematics, and we find ourselves in neuroscience, and ways of thinking that are counterintuitive to our natural programming.
So let's kind of cut down to the baseline.
Sure.
What is a efficient or productive society? What exists there? I mean, to say what is wrong with our current state of spirituality, our current state of religion? Can, in your opinion, can religion and spirituality exist in a modern time or in a future world?
I don't think it's good for us.
I have to say,
I really think that it's got its foot on the brakes, and it has gullible minds wrapped up in ways of thinking that end up contributing less, to their progress as individuals and as societies, as cultures.
I think there's a need there. I think there's a need in the human experience in order to capture that wonder, in order to capture that hyper experience that we tend to have, especially whether you're an artist or whether you're sensitive to these things or whether what have you.
It's kind of like asking...
There's room for that.
It's kind of like asking, was Mother Teresa a force for good in the world? No, she was not. She was obviously not a force for good in the world. She was a total facade representative for the Catholic organization.
If you're thinking I'm going to throw my lot with her, we're starting from the wrong analogy.
I'm just saying, and I'm not strawmanning you or anything. I'm just saying that this is an analogy where, most people take it on faith that Mother Teresa was a wonderful human being. And the fact of the matter is she ran death camps where people had no hopes of recovering and would only get sick and die. So, and it's in that same sense that religion drives backwards ideas, that dogma That's really the problem with religion. The real problem with religion is dogma and outdated, backwards ways of thinking.
I don't think it's necessary for that to be inherent in religion, and by extension, spirituality. I think you can have spirituality without religion. Religion is means
I'm on board with that.
It's a set of beliefs. It's a set of maybe predetermined idolatry. It's a set of
dogmas.
There's dogma, of course.
Yeah.
This
is the truth, and let's not worry about why it's true.
Sometimes.
This is just the way it is, and let's not bother ourselves with figuring out why or how or
that's
maybe
how it's
or,
been,
whether or not it's even true.
Sure, but that's how it's been. We're living in a modern time where the world is our oyster, and I don't think we have to be anchored down by that. Now, I do believe, even looking over history, there is examples where religion isn't like that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is there can be, just like there's an evolution of our understanding of the world, there is a measured evolution. I think
we're no longer the center of the universe.
Yeah,
the world is no longer flat.
I think we don't have to have religion that becomes this exclusionary, sometimes elitist, sometimes oligarchy kind of, this is our truth, and part of our truth is we are better than this, therefore we can judge you endlessly, harm, genocide, all these horrible things. I think religion can evolve. I see that it's even in the past.
Well, I mean, let's look. I mean, Christians have done a magnificent job of reformation. We're in the Western world, in the United States, we're no longer burning witches, drowning witches, this sort of thing. We've come a long way. They've come a long way.
Sure. We can't say that for most of the world, for certain parts of the world.
And in fact, humans, by and large, have enough sense over time to start ignoring the flagrant and
because it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the Bible, like, that's really nasty stuff that people they ignore it. They pen it out.
Well, they have to.
And they focus on the good stuff. So, like, given enough time, intuitively, despite religion, we can have a good set of ethics. So,
all I'm arguing is this. Well, not all are, but what I'm arguing is this in terms of spirituality. I believe one is spirituality has nothing to do with religion. I think you can be an atheist and have a spiritual existence, as in you could be okay with
I think you can be
experience.
Spiritual without religion, but I think religion requires a spiritual element. What do you think?
I don't think so.
You don't think that religion requires a spiritual element?
No. I mean, for one, Satanism is a religion. It's very secular religion for most, and it can be very mystical for some. It can be spiritual for some. There could be a spirituality and secularism at the same time. Satanism is a perfect example of that. In fact, I think in many ways, Satanism runs in line with a lot of Eastern religions. As in, it can be you don't have to have a central deity, but you can have one, at least in the beginning. Now, we've kind of moved away from that, but in the beginning, with Satanism, you can be theistic. As long as you uphold a certain philosophical ideal, you can be completely atheistic and secular.
Right. You have the choice. Okay. You have the choice to be.
You have a choice.
Secular. Right.
Now, if there are religions that have that flexibility, in as much that you can be a part of the religion but still function with others, I think it has a place in the world. I think there's a sense of belonging that comes with religion, even though Satanism would be a church of non-joiners, as it were.
Right. It has its own paradox about it. Its own irony to it, doesn't it? Yeah, no, but sure. Yeah. Like a clan of rebels, I guess. A clan of spiritual rebels.
In a form.
Right.
I think there's power in that.
Well, there's certainly, being the social creatures that we are, there is certainly power in social affirmation and in being part of something bigger than yourself. We don't need religion to perform that function. And in fact, that's just one example in which if you're doing okay with a religious perspective, you could be doing at least as well, if not better, with a non-religious perspective. So any function that religion performs...
Sure.
Can be
done away with.
Except for, and here's the big hitter. Here's the big hitter in the park, because religion most religions and the afterlife is denial of death. Now, that's one thing that you do not get with atheism that religion does, atheism can't do, is say, you know, when your body fails you and you die, it's okay, fear not, you're going to join all your friends and family.
But that's been a staple of the past, once again. That's been a staple of the past.
I don't think it's necessary. Well, I don't think it's true, but I think it's a large motivating factor which drives that fear of absolute death.
Religion has been fear-driven for the majority of its life.
Right, and that's no path to clear thinking.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I argue that there can be a clear dialogue between secular and spiritual, maybe even the religious. I just feel like there's certain things that can't come to the table. We can't say that certain people are better than others based on things they can't control. That is evil. I think you can't discount others. You have to have the flexibility to understand that secular and spiritual both can come to similar truths. Just interpretations can be different, so long as it doesn't circumvent and compromise the freedom of others. I think that's possible. Maybe I'm a wishful thinker, but the reason I feel that way is because in my own path and my own understanding, I have seen religions and spiritual paths that do allow for that flexibility. I think that religion doesn't mean that flexibility doesn't have to exist there. I think that we can evolve in that regard and have room for that. Have room to accept that, you know what, humans do want to have a connectedness.
Yeah.
They do want to connect to bigger things in each other.
Right, yeah.
And spirituality, whether it's belief in a deity in whatever form, even if it's a complex, kind of psychological construct that comes to life at certain times or whatever that runs through a lot of the occult community, or even if it's very real, even if they believe in literal, I think there's room, so long as ethics is communicated, so long as you do not allow to hurt others, and that is kept in check, that eternal ethical connection to other humans, a promise to not hurt each other over things like that. I think, I don't know. There's a lot of things that give me a pessimistic ideal for the human race. But sometimes...
right. Some light shines through the cracks.
And forgive me, but sometimes I think miracles can happen.
Oh, man.
Thank you for listening and lending your ears to Deferred Gnosis podcast. Please... use the contact information in the description. Send us topic ideas, things you might want us to discuss, things you might want us to go to bat with, carve out a niche. That Venn diagram, as Matt so eloquently put it, reaching some ground just on the edge of the fringe. And if you are a musician, an artist, poet, please feel free to send us your recorded works. We'd be more than happy to find a place for it at the end of the show. Now, we have a penchant for the subversive, so the darker, the better. Thank you for listening.
And highest cheers from Deferred Gnosis.
Ave hails
as above, so below.